does it mean to be a business owner, to be an entrepreneur, to be a real estate investor, or anything else that you may be associated with? What does it mean to be a father, a mother, a parent, a husband, spouse, wife, whatever? What does it mean to lean into those labels? What I found as I've looked back on my pivots over the past few years is I truly didn't actually know who I was. And all of this was an identity struggle. I don't know about you, but I've made a lot of decisions in my life based on what I thought I was supposed to do versus what I actually wanted to do. And as I've explored that a lot over the past couple of years and I looked at my pivots that I've made, all of it has been a search for my own true identity. I want to talk about a little bit of that today and how the labels that we have, the identities that we associate with, the titles that we have in the industries that we're in, a lot of times they make up this false identity of who we are. And what I've found personally is by breaking through that cycle, there's been a cycle that comes along with that. And by breaking through that cycle, I've been able to step truly into an authentic version of me that's led to the happiness, the peace, prosperity that I have right now that I've not had previously. My name is Patrick Menefee, and the whole purpose of this channel is to help you level up your money, your mindset, and your mission by diving into some of the stories that have helped me do the exact same. Now, these videos drop every single Monday, so I hope hit the subscribe button below. You can get notified every time they come out. And if you want more, I have a newsletter, free newsletter that comes out every other week. It's called Menefee Monday Motivator. You can click the link down in the description to subscribe. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this cycle first, and I'll share this in relation to my story. The cycle starts typically by assuming the identity of a particular label. For me, one of the earliest labels that I adopted was that of an Army infantryman. There's this standard, there's this motto that we live by. There are these things, I've got it on the wall, I've got it all over the place. It's a part of who I am. And there are plenty of parts of that persona, plenty of parts of that identity that are truly me. There's also parts that aren't. And that internal conflict has been a struggle for me. I have a tendency to push myself into doing harder things and choosing the hard in every case, not accepting anything that's actually easy. I actually keep an easy button on my desk.
That was easy.
The whole reason that I keep this is because I have this Army identity that makes it really hard to accept this. I always have to pick the hard thing. I always have to suffer more than you because in the Army, the identity is if you struggle more than someone else, you're better. If someone is living a good life, someone's living a little bit more luxury and they're not suffering as much as you, obviously they're down here. They're not as good as you. You're definitely better than them. And I've taken to heart a lot of this need to outsuffer. And it's an identity and a label that has not served me at all. It helped me at the time, it helped me get through hard things, and now it holds me back a lot. And I've got to separate those two. But what happens with these labels is first we accept them, and then we start to realize that there's a little bit of a split. When the split happens, we start to realize that who we truly are and who this label says that we need to be, maybe they're two different things. And so maybe I feel like I need to do the hard thing. Maybe I feel like I need to be miserable in this case, or maybe I feel like I don't deserve to feel the joy and happiness or have fun, but I want to, really want to. And these two start pulling apart. And I've seen this time and time again in my life. When I built my flipping business, this is the perfect example of multiple identities coming together. I had the identity of Army Patrick, who never quit, had to do hard things. I had the identity of entrepreneur, of real estate investor, who had to push, do deal, who had to grow something, who had to prove that I was better than other people, who had to prove that I could build a bigger business and I could create more revenue and I could be profitable and I could do all these things. And I could have a team and I could systematize all of these things that were expectations. I didn't really want a massive team. That sounded like a lot. It sounded like way more than I wanted. That didn't matter because that was what the label said. That was the identity that I stepped into and that I accepted. And so again, I had identity that was over here and I had me that was over here. Now that makes sense in theory, right? And I've shared with you that I'm going to take this a lot deeper with you. I'm going to go and connect with you on the personal level and I'm going to share the struggle, like the deep struggle, not just the surface level. So the surface level is all of these back and forth, but really the practical application of that is my business. I had a business that wasn't going well. I wasn't already pleased with what I was doing because there was no alignment, no purpose behind it. So I already felt a little bit off with it. But then the business wasn't going well. I had a lot of money going out and no money coming in. I had overhead, I'd hired people. When the business wasn't going well, I also hired someone that was a huge mistake. He was a terrible fit and I was paying him way more money than I should have. I had a lot of money going out to him and a lot of stress that was added on top of that, plus the stress of trying to keep the team or get the team performing. And these are people that I cared about. I had made promises to them and commitments about how we were gonna grow this business. And so all of these identities came together where I knew that the right thing to do after a certain amount of time was that I needed to pivot. I could not keep going on the trajectory that I was going because I was going to bankrupt myself. That was where I wanted to go. I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't like what I was doing. I didn't like what my life was like. But then the identity kicked in, the assumed identity. All of the other stories of my bullshit kicked in. And there's the army version of me that said, well, you just have to do the hard thing and you've got to stick it out. So you can't quit because you're not a quitter. You literally say in the Ranger Creed that I will never quit. So I don't quit. I had the business owner perspective that, well, I can't fail in business. I can fail in a deal, but I can't fail in business. What's that going to mean about me? What's that going to mean about who I am? And all of a sudden I'm caught in this middle ground. And I was caught in this middle ground for a couple of months. And I refused to let go. I refused to quit and I refused to pivot because I was too terrified of what that would mean and what people would think of me. But at the same time, I was driving off the road of bankruptcy. I was going to run out of money. I was pouring out thousands of dollars a month. And my cushion was getting lower and lower and lower, and that money was going away. And if I didn't make a change, I was literally going to go bankrupt. And the crazy thing about this and why this identity thing is so powerful is that because of this identity, because of who I was supposed to be or who I thought I was supposed to be and the decisions that I thought I was supposed to make, I was more comfortable going towards bankruptcy than I was pivoting. Because pivoting meant quitting. Pivoting meant letting all of these people down and letting down all of these expectations of who I was supposed to be. Bankruptcy, at least I went out trying. At least I did the hard thing. People overcome bankruptcy. That is the bullshit that was in my head. And it ate at me so hard. I didn't want to tell the team that I had to shut things down. That was the identity piece at odds. And eventually, when we don't realize that our identity of who we are acting as and who we feel like we need to be isn't matching who we actually are and what our values are and what we care about, they will always come to a head and one of them will win. In this case, luckily, my real identity won. And I made the split and I shut down the business. I had the hard conversations and I felt awful. I remember crying in my living room talking to Jamie about this, but I shut it down and I did the thing. And they were some of the most painful conversations that I've had in business. Felt like I let people down, but that was the right thing. It was the thing that I needed to do. And as the cycle continues, that is the process of letting go of a label. But the hard part of letting go of a label is that you've got to do it twice. First, you've got to do it to the world. You've got to set down the label and say, for me, I am not the owner of a house flipping business anymore. All of these other identities and all this bullshit that was associated with that, I am not that anymore. I'm going to set that one down. So I shut down the business. But the internal identity, the internal label is still there. And the same thing applies with the army. Same thing applies with what it means to be an entrepreneur, a real estate investor, all of these things. It doesn't mean that all of this stuff goes away. They still tug at me today. They still are a part of my life. And the thing about these identities is that they're false identities in the fact that I'm acting on the parts of them that are based on who I think I should be versus who I want to be. There's some of those things that serve me, that have served me in the past. But now it takes a conscious decision to let them go and say, that is not who I am. I'm okay with being a different person. I'm okay with being my own person. If that means that I have a little part of this label, but I push against what it really truly means in a lot of cases for other people to be an entrepreneur, that's okay because that's me. If the label of an army infantryman, if I don't fit every aspect of that and someone pushes back against that and says, oh, you're not this, it's me. That's who I am. It's a struggle. It takes a lot more confidence that I've had to build in order to be able to push back against that. But I can tell you from my own experience that this has been a level of fulfillment and freedom that I've never experienced before. By breaking free of all these other bullshit identities, by getting beyond them and understanding who I truly am, who I want to be, where I'm going, and having goals that are authentically mine, not goals that I adopt from someone else. It's led to this life of peace and happiness and fulfillment. And I know that I've got a long ways to go to get to the full level of what I want to achieve. There is no such thing as there. I want to continue to build and grow, and I will. But in this moment now, as I've separated all these other bullshit identities, where I am now, I've never been as fulfilled and as happy as I am, especially in the professional work. For the past few years, I've been thrilled in my personal life. Amazing wife, amazing daughter. The professional side is where I've struggled and I've gone back and forth. And now as I've stepped into my true identity, this is where the magic happens. This is where the peace and the happiness happens. And I hope that this is helpful to you in breaking through some of those identities. If you can think about what are the things that I've done that are based on what other people expect of me. This may be in the business world, it may be in the personal world. For me, there was an entire engagement that was associated with that and almost getting married to someone. I'll share that story in depth more later, but it applies in a lot of different ways. It comes out in a lot of different ways. Where are you leaning into your identity? Where are you assuming the identity of what you feel like you're supposed to based on what other people think? I challenge you to find out where those two pieces are, which one is really you, which one is the assumed you, and let one of them prevail, the one that's actually you. Because the life that's on the other side of that is absolutely incredible. Hope this is helpful to you. I hope that it resonates with you. If it does, I'd love to hear in the comments below how it impacts you, how you felt this, how it's shown up in your life, and how you can move forward making the decisions that are truly authentically you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you back here next week.